Right, quick rant for a minute here, getting ready to go out, teach the maths, but I just wanted to talk for a moment about the fact that you don't have to be right all the time. Um, Lighting's no good today, too lazy to set up any other lights, and the sun hasn't really been out today. But we're going to deal with it. So, you don't have to be right all the time. I mean that, in, or I stand by that statement for two senses of being right. So there's this sort of notion of factual accuracy, and then there's another notion that people get mixed up with, which is just sort of winning the argument. Like being right is if I win. Um, and you don't need to do either of those. So that's what I'm here to talk about. So let's talk about factual accuracy. We all come into the world knowing absolutely nothing, and we have to pick it up as we go. And yet, so many of us are willing to sort of beat up our peers over the fact that they don't know a thing that we just learned 10 minutes ago. There's just sort of eagerness to hold our body of facts over the heads of other people that I think is drilled into us during school. We have this sort of process where we are socialized to believe that having facts is a good thing. You know, we go to school and we're getting educated, and it's memorize this list of facts, and if you don't memorize this list of facts, then you're a bad person and you're dumb and all of these sorts of things. And as a lifelong fact memorizer, all kinds of facts in here, and I can tell you that it's never made me any happier or better as a person to know a lot of facts. I've been, a miserable asshole, and known all kinds of things. And, fortunately, I like to think I've turned it around a little bit. But knowledge should make your life better. Knowledge should make your life easier, and knowledge should make you happier. But knowledge requires not memorizing a bunch of facts, but being able to put those facts within a context and understand something about your experience of the world. And you only gain knowledge with the realization that you don't know something. That's where you have to start. You start out knowing nothing, you accumulate stuff over the course of your life, but if you reach a point where you go, it's shameful, and I have to hide the fact that I don't know something, then you close yourself off from the possibility of growing in that direction. So it's silly. It's silly. So you don't have to worry about that. And the reality is you really don't have to worry about that, like socially even. My experience has always been that as long as I'm forthright about the fact that I don't know something, nobody's ever mad. Just, oh, well, yeah, I have no idea about that. And people go, oh, okay, and they're happy to help. It's when you hide the fact that you don't know something or try to pretend and people detect that the people get resentful because you've misled somebody, or you've sort of, the implication is that you're cleverer than they're perceptive, right? And that nobody likes that sort of situation. So, but as long as you are upfront about your lack of knowledge and are making a good faith effort to increase your knowledge, my experience has been that people don't get mad, and they are more than happy to help you, especially if they know something about the area under consideration. Now, once in a while, of course, if you have a job and it involves some expertise, you should get your facts right, of course. And if you're participating in sort of our public discussions, debates, or political processes, it's important to have, to be able to marshal the facts on your side. But outside of that, if you're just cruising along in your life, dealing with your fellow human beings, it's really not that big a deal. So, if you don't know something, embrace it. Hey, I don't know this. Can I know this? What do I have to do to learn about this? If you can lay aside the sort of the hiding and the shame and all of that, and the concern about being perceived as being right, then you open the door to learning something. The other thing is winning the argument, which is something that I've certainly been guilty of at many, many, many points in my life. I have sort of a contentious nature. I really like arguing. I like to contend against people and whatnot. It's something that I'm working on sort of mellowing on. But that can be something that people are really encouraged to celebrate. winning as opposed to actually discovering the truth about a matter. And people get involved in all sorts of obfuscation and misleading tactics and whatnot. And I think that a lot of that can actually sort of unconsciously be rooted in a really naive understanding of the relationship between our experience and reality. We kind of have this model that we cruise around with where there's a world out there and then we experience that world. So it's sort of there, over here's the world, here's us, and there's this information flow linking the world to us. And it's really a difficult model to engage the world with, because then, of course, if two people are experiencing the same set of events and they arrive at different conclusions about what those events mean, somebody's got to be wrong, right? If you're just experiencing the world and I'm just experiencing the world and we can't agree despite having nominally the same experience, one or the other of us is wrong. And in that case, my differing experience is actually attacking the validity of your experience of those events. So you have to win, or something's wrong with your experience, and that's threatening. But when you start to really dig into it and realize, hey, actually, there's a whole lot more than that going on. Maybe there's a world out there. On a good day, I believe that. But from that world, we get information via our senses, and our senses can only take in a tiny fraction of all the information that's available in the universe. We can see in this tiny, tiny little band of the electromagnetic spectrum, and we develop all kinds of tools now that let us see other things, get other information, but our eyes only get a tiny bit of it, and our ears are only so acute, and our other senses are incredibly limited, really. They don't really have a great spatial extent, and so for any given set of events, you get a tiny sliver of the available information about what's really happening there, and I get a different tiny sliver of the information that's available there. And if we arrive at different conclusions about the significance of those events, well, yeah, obviously, we have had different experience, we have different ways of processing the information that we have available to us, and we have completely different information available. Even if you and I are standing right next to each other, looking at the same events, our senses have different acuities, our brains are going to pick out different subsets of information to actually dedicate the processing time to come to grips with, and then we're going to have different higher level abstractions through which we view those things, and so we're going to have completely different conclusions about it, and it's fine. So both of our experiences can be valid, and nobody has to win. So just something to consider if you're having that experience of that second kind of being right. If you really have to win the argument, just think about the fact that a lot of energy can get wasted in that. I see people who are engaged in relationships, for example, and they get into fights, and it's important to win. And for me, it's like, why? Why is it important to win? What's the prize? Because it seems like nobody's happy that this is going on. You just end up with a damaged relationship. So, but people's egos get involved, and there's a contest, and they got to win because they've got to protect the validity of their experience or what have you. And it's like, oh, that seems really unfortunate. So maybe bring a little subtlety there, a little understanding for the fact that coming to grips with the universe is hard, and people are going to come to different understanding from the same set of circumstances, and it's fine, and we can just embrace that. And in both senses, making it okay to not be right opens up the door to learning and growing in a way that's not available otherwise. So you don't have to do it. You don't got to be right all the time. That's it.